The exact number of troops Ukraine has deployed into Russian territory remains a subject of debate. Recent discussions suggest that this operation has escalated to a significant scale, potentially reaching the strategic level. According to recent American media reports, the forces involved include an airborne infantry brigade and four mechanized infantry brigades, along with various support units like reconnaissance companies, totaling approximately 600 armored vehicles and over 10,000 soldiers. This figure contrasts with the common expectation in military history that full-strength units would be deployed together, often in complete formations. In the context of the ongoing conflict, it's noteworthy that full brigades or even divisions are rarely seen fully engaged. Often only parts of these units, such as individual companies, are deployed to specific locations. This fragmented deployment suggests that while the reported numbers are substantial, they might not reflect the full operational strength initially thought. Additionally, there is a contingent of auxiliary forces, including pro-Ukrainian elements within Russia itself, contributing to the Ukrainian cause. The Ukrainian military success has been notable, with the capture of several dozen Russian soldiers, a fact repeatedly highlighted since the initial incident where dozens of Russian troops surrendered after being surrounded and outmatched. In terms of territorial gains, the latest estimates indicate that Ukraine has taken control of around 400 square miles of Russian land. As one of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council to have its territory invaded since World War I, this situation has significantly impacted Russian public morale, with some referring to it as a major setback for the country. In a critical assessment, Russia's performance appears underwhelming, particularly in light of its conflict with Ukraine. Despite direct confrontation, the country's border fortifications have not met expectations. Predictions made by Prigozhin and even a year ago highlighted the problematic state of Russia's border defense, warning that without intervention, Ukraine might invade regions like Kursk. Sadly, these warnings were radically realized, illustrating the severity of corruption within Russia's defense system. This has enabled swift and deep penetration by Ukrainian forces, possibly with covert NATO support. The situation in Russia's territory has persisted for days without resolution, raising questions about President Putin's actions. While the blame cannot solely be placed on him, it is clear that strategic considerations are paramount. The conflict in Kursk is merely a segment of a larger eastern front. Russia's strategic response involves for key areas monitoring NATO's actions and stance, understanding the level of support provided to Ukraine, planning retaliatory measures against NATO countries without escalating tensions to the point of all-out war, and ensuring the safety of civilians by evacuating populations from combat zones. The evacuation of 76,000 residents from Kursk indicates significant efforts in this direction. As a result, Russian forces are increasingly employing high-impact weapons such as thermobaric bombs to address the evolving conflict dynamics. Undeniably, such actions are not commendable. Targeting civilians, dwellings alongside the aggressors, in my honest opinion, is a result of necessity rather than choice. This highlights a need for Russia's military to significantly enhance its capabilities and special operations under urban warfare tactics. The third strategic aspect involves deploying forces and launching simultaneous attacks, demonstrating Russia's approach to countering Ukrainian forces. On one hand, resources are concentrated to eliminate Ukrainian troops in Kursk. According to the latest statement from the Russian Defense Ministry, the Ukrainians have suffered significant losses, including over 100 to 200 tanks and armored vehicles, and more than 1,100 casualties, with over 300 fatalities confirmed. Simultaneously, attacks on Ukrainian reserves, secondary forces, and targets within Ukraine, including major cities like Kyiv, aim to maintain offensive pressure on the front lines, forcing Ukrainian forces to spread their resources thinly. In the face of Ukrainian forces advancing into Russia, the military's response has been focused on 3 less intense fronts: Volkoshviki, Krim, Lya, and Kherson. Instead of large-scale deployments from the main theater, the bulk of the forces consist of border guards, police, and volunteer forces. The rationale behind this strategy is that in the territory invaded by Ukraine, Russia can mobilize conscripted soldiers without issue, ensuring an adequate supply of troops without diverting resources from the primary battlefront. Russia's approach also involves reclassifying the conflict as a terrorist attack, a move intended to mitigate public perception and legal repercussions. By framing the Ukrainian invasion as a terrorist act, it downplays the scale of the threat while potentially stripping Ukrainian combatants of certain protections under international law. This strategy aims to create a dynamic where both sides are equally pressured, forcing them to consider the consequences of their actions. As the situation unfolds, the effectiveness of these strategies will depend on the pace of the war and the decisions made by both parties. It's evident that Russia's military has begun to operate more systematically after the initial shock phase, leading to a stabilization of the front lines despite some minor territorial. The future of the conflict hinges on whether Ukraine decides to escalate further or seeks a strategic retreat, emphasizing the importance of maintaining a strong position on the main battlefield.